I want to welcome you back to the project, and if you haven't been here before, I'll try to catch you up to speed. What we have going on is a 2003 Harley Davidson Sportster, and we're trying to make it, trying to turn it into a vintage 1950s looking the European experiment in sports bikes. Um, some sort of a naked cafe racer with classic lines to it, no modern components. And for those of you who have been watching and kept up with the project, um, I'll pick up where I left off. And last time you saw it, I had cast wheels on it. I had a belt drive on it, and the suspension was still, the springs were inside the suspension. Now I switched over to spoke wheels because, well, they look the part. They look more classic. And I did convert to a chain drive. I did not yet install the chain. I have to do other stuff before I get that far. But I installed both sprockets, and I removed the springs from the suspension in order to be able to design the fender stays and the loop for the seat and where the rear fender goes. I needed to know that information to make sure that I don't get any surprises with the motorcycle bottoming out on the tires or sheet metal against sheet metal. Or I wanted to prevent that from happening. The only way to do that, remove the springs and do your design that way. And then once I'm done, I'll obviously put the springs back in. So this is the final stance of the motorcycle. Not the stance, rather, the profile. The stance will look different once it's raised up with the springs back on there, another 4 or 5 inches off the ground. So I'll try to walk into what I did here. I made the rear loop, and it's going to hold my rear fender and my seat on there. And then this is the seat I decided on, even though I had other options. But my other options were flat bottomed, which didn't allow for fender clearance. This one has a void underneath it, so I should have no problem fitting the fender underneath it. Fuel tank is a Norton Commando Sprint Lita tank, LYTA tank, made of aluminum. Some are made in India. I get these for about 500 bucks, give or take. And they're well made, nice, very lightweight, and being aluminum, they obviously don't require paint, and they don't require a liner on the inside to prevent from rusting. So this is the fuel tank, and that's about where it's going to go. I have not made any brackets, but I know it's going there. The triple tree I made a little cover for, and originally this was covering the big holes for the bushings that held onto my handlebars while I had the original handlebars on there. And where those big holes are, this is now covering it, although I'm thinking about putting 2 idiot lights, one green and one red, neutral and oil pressure. We'll see. I might decide to keep my electrics very simple, and I might not go with idiot lights after all. The handlebars are now clip-on style, made by Tomaselli, and their Tomaselli handlebars are by far the most adjustable, strongest clip-ons I can find on the market, and I've used them with great success in prior applications. This being my number 16 build, I do have a little bit of experience with the clip-ons, and these are my favorite. The headlight is off of a zoomed up BMW. Ural used it also, and it's a fairly common fairly common reproduction part. They're relatively inexpensive. They go for about 70 bucks on eBay. And with a little bit of work, you can actually fit a Harley speedometer inside it. And The front fender is of a classic British bike, made of aluminum. Thank you, Greg. Greg, a friend of mine gave it to me, Greg Rahola. Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate it. It looks beautiful there. And most people either cut them very short or don't run a front fender at all. I guess it's a matter of personal preference. I do like having a full fender. It's very sexy, and because it's long and aluminum, it's somewhat fragile, so I'll have to support the ends with extra fender stays. I'll make a, this is a aluminum tubing. I'll crush the end so I can cross drill for the bolt. I'll crush the sander for about this long so I can bend it, and do the same thing on the other side. And they'll mount like so, one for the front tip of the fender and another bar for the rear tip of the fender, like right about there. And to top off the front fender, I make these pedestrian slicer. European motorcycles of the 50s and 1960s used to require a license plate for the front fender. I don't think they do that anymore, but I like to retain that look because it's traditional and it looks vintage. But instead of having my registration number on here, I'll have my my shop's name, Motonisto, and that'll be my calling card, and you'll go right about there. And now you see the importance of removing the springs while designing the components of the bike, because this would have interfered if I would have moved any further back. So you'll have to be somewhere around here. So a lot of stuff to be made. I haven't even scratched the surface yet, but what I'm very happy with is that I achieved the lines that I was looking for. Very streamlined and very aerodynamic. It's a very sexy looking bike. I don't know what it looks like in a video. If you're able to walk around it, it's very pretty. But that said, you will look different once the springs are back in and the bike is sitting off the ground. Well, until the next time, until I make some few parts and I see a reason to update you on the project, take care, and we'll chat later. Bye-bye.